Welcome, everybody, to another episode of We All Grieve. My name is Kay Rogers. I'm your host, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, Christy Nachtrieb. Did I say it right this time?
That's right. Perfect.
Right. That's an improvement, better than what I normally do. So, Christy, you are a organ recipient,
Yes.
and I really like to talk a lot about organ donation and donation and receiving because I think they're great stories to tell and talk to people about. So then we can get that awareness out there on the impact that you have to people's lives when you give these types of things. So if you wouldn't mind, I know you said that you're a liver recipient and you
Yes.
received your life-saving gift on February 8th, 2019.
Yes.
So, and I know we've tried, this is the third time today we've tried to do this, and
All
this is going to
right.
work today. So, if you
Third
could
time's
take,
a charm.
that's right, third time's a charm. So, if you could take us from the beginning and just kind of kick us off to where all this kind of started for you and just talk us through your journey up until where you got your life saving uh, donation and then maybe your life afterwards.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you very much, Kay. Well, again, I'm Christy Nachtrieb, and I am honored to be here to speak about organ donation, as obviously I firmly believe and thank God for it every day. My story begins in September of 2012. I woke up one morning with bruises all over my body and different things, and I went to the doctor. I guess my story probably too goes back when I was pregnant with my first son. I had some issues with my pregnancy, and they knew I had something going on. They told me I would eventually have lupus. So in the future forward to September of 2012, when I met with my doctors, they said they were on the right path, just the wrong autoimmune disease. I was actually diagnosed in 2012 with PBC, primary biliary colitis, it is called now. So kind of quick little just recap. My son, I have two boys, and I went from September until about March of 2018, pretty good. Didn't have a lot of issues, here and there, some fatigue and things, but nothing major. Come March and April, I'd say, of 2018, I started to kind of show some signs of some things. I started having some jaundice, started having some swelling in my abdomen, just a few things that I guess in my heart of heart, I knew something was going on, but I was afraid, and kind of just sat back and kind of see where it took me. I went in May of 2018. My youngest son graduated from college in Minnesota, and my older son, who lives in California, came to the graduation. And when I got there, neither had seen me since Christmas, and both were like, "Mom, what's going on?" And I knew, pictures, looking back on pictures now, but I was terrified. I was scared. But I made a promise to both of them that when I got back, I would see the doctor and see what was going on. It was determined the next week that I had the beginning stages of liver failure. PBC is something that a lot of people can live a whole lifetime and never have issues to where they go into where they need a transplant. I unfortunately was not one of those. So in June of 2018, the process of testing begins. So anyone, when you are in need of an organ transplant, there's tests, everything. They make sure everything else is okay, because if something else, for God forbid, they find, it could compromise your chances of being listed. So that process took me from June until, I want to say, well, December, I was listed finally. By that point in time, by the time I was listed, I was so sick. I was having trouble, my fatigue, my stomach was being tapped every 10 to 15 days. I had a couple of, between all of this, I had a couple of different stints in the hospital. I had what they call an HE episode, where my ammonia level rose, and thank God my husband came home from work that day and found me, called 911, and they got me into the hospital, and it took me about 24 hours to finally snap out of that. Some people are in those for days, to my understanding. I was fortunate that it didn't happen. I also had, in one of my ascites, when they were doing the stomach tap, the fluid in your stomach, there was a bacterial infection. So I was hospitalized at one point for 5 days getting IV antibiotics. So just, I guess, just to kind of see the progression of how bad it just continued to get. And liver failure is quick, painful, and it's scary. Your liver's a very important part of your body, as everything is, but it is. So February 6th, I finally got the call that they had a match. And so my surgeon called. We were supposed to get freezing rain. He called me and said he was going to Loyola University is where my transplant took place, and they told me to come because they were concerned. The liver wasn't there yet, but they had me admitted, started just everything, the prep to get me ready. And by the afternoon of the 7th, we found out about 6 p.m. at night that it was going to be a go. So at 11:30, they came and got me. I was very fortunate. I had my husband, both of my sons, my brother, my mom, my nephew, my stepfather, my brother's girlfriend, my family, my immediate family, all was able to be there, since we had that 24 hours that we were kind of in limbo of not knowing. So they were all there when they took me, and they were all there when I woke up. The next morning when I woke, I just remember waking up and looking up, and I couldn't believe it. When they took me back, I know the anesthesiologist was like, when can I knock this young lady out? Because I couldn't be quiet. I had every question under the sun. And
nature, are you?
yeah, I'm a talker anyway, so imagine the nerves and that. But I just, the best way I've ever told anyone I can describe it is joy and fear collide. And when they do, it's an unbelievable feeling that I don't know how to explain, other than, I guess, childbirth would be the closest thing, as far as how your mind is just reeling. And when you're looking up at your family and you're realizing that someone out there lost their loved one to give me my life back, that it's just something that I know I can never repay. But I thank God, and I swear to God, I will honor every day for the rest of my life.
So, yeah, we'll get into that too a little bit, because that's an interesting conversation too. I've had that with different recipients at different times on almost what you want to call a little bit of survivor's guilt,
Sure.
And it's an interesting difference in perspectives, right? Because I'm a donor father. My son passed away. We donated his organs. And, I've had those conversations many times. We'll get into that here in just a minute. I want to back up for a second, though, and I want to ask just a couple questions. So you mentioned stomach tapping. And so can you kind of just walk us through what that is? Explain a little bit about that.
Sure. The medical term, it's called paracentesis. And basically what I do is I would go in, and they would numb and go into my stomach with a tube, and it would suction that fluid out of my stomach. I would get anywhere from 1.5 liters to 2 liters of fluid in the beginning. To the end, I got the last time I went, they got close to 8 liters of fluid out of my body. And that was, I think, 9 days between my stomach being tapped. That fluid is dangerous because it puts pressure on your lungs, on your everything, because it just continues to build and there's nowhere for it to go. So there was one time that I waited because it hurt and I was scared and I didn't want to go back, and I waited too long, and it was bad. Don't do that. I don't recommend that ever. In any case, if something's wrong, go to the doctor. But it was but yes, they take a tube and they suction that fluid out, and you just lay there, and they move your body around because there's pockets that fluid can get stuck, and they just to get it out to give you relief.
Sounds terrible.
Yes, your bile ducts your liver just gets to a point where it can't filter anymore, and the only way, it just continues to back up. So low sodium diet. There were a few things that they had me do to try. They had me on diuretics, water pills, for a short period of time, but I was starting to get so sick that my kidneys were starting to be actually my kidneys were starting to go into failure. And so they had to get me off of those because of there's just so many different aspects of it. But yes, every time I got tapped, I was so thrilled. And I actually, the day they called me that I was having my transplant, possibly, I called the hospital because I was scheduled to have my stomach tapped the next day. And I called and said, I want to cancel. So you can call the next person on the list, because I know how important some days you wait for a cancellation, hoping you can get in a day early just to get that fluid out.
Wow. And So they didn't make you go in and do that ahead of the surgery when you received your liver?
No, no, no. We just got to the hospital and we just waited it out.
And so going through this, so this started back in 2012 and they recognized that there's an issue, right? They thought maybe
Yes,
it's lupus, obviously, wrong.
sure.
It's hard to diagnose that early on, but
Absolutely.
there was no treatment or anything that they could do or put you on that would prevent you from going into liver failure.
There was medication I took. It's called Ursidile. I'm still on it today for the PBC that treat it. Um, but it's one of those things that some people can be on that and live healthy forever, and some don't get that fortunate. And mine took that turn.
Yeah, so it's not going to have the same result for everybody then, and your result
Exactly.
that most
Absolutely.
have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have your surgery, you receive the liver. I'm sure you were probably very curious going in the operating room and asking all kinds of questions. Is this going to
Yeah.
take long? I'm sure a million things, right? I'm sure the nurses are just anesthesia, quick, 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 right? But um, how long were you in surgery? Do you know?
About 8.5 hours, almost 9 hours, actually. I know for a fact because they came out and said that my liver was so enlarged that that took the most time trying to get my liver out of me so they could put the new liver in because my liver was so enlarged.
Wow, that had to be something.
Yeah, my family said, my son and I actually just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he just said it was the longest 9 hours of his life. And he said, I did more puzzles in that 9 hours. I don't think I'll ever do a puzzle again and look at it the same way.
So yeah, I bet not. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I'm sure that was just torture on your family sitting there waiting that long to hear, anything. And I know that in the hospitals they come out periodically and just give updates.
Right.
Hey, still in surgery, things are going okay. This is normal because I'm sure the question is, does it normally take this long? I mean, what is going on, right? And
Yeah,
it's always one of them things where what you're told ends up being a little bit different than what really happens, so it causes you to
absolutely.
worry a little bit more, right?
Sure.
So you got through it. 9 hours goes by. You wake up. You're surrounded by your loved ones. Did you feel immediately different waking up with the new liver?
Yes, I felt better. I literally really did feel better. I was, I, immediately when I woke up, you have all the tubes and everything going down your throat, and I'm pointing and pointing at the nurse, get this out, because I was so, just to open my eyes and see that. I literally just I don't know. I just think I can say I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it, and I just was. But I did. I felt better. I felt just just like I could breathe. Like, just, oh my God, I'm here. I mean, I'm here. You know why? And I think, and again, we can go over this longer. Maybe I'm getting too far into it, but the first thing that goes through your mind when you're laying there, or at least in mine, was, how did I get so lucky? How is there someone else here that maybe also is waiting for a liver, and I got it, and thank God for it. There's just, there's so many things, but it's crazy.
So yeah, that's a good point. Because you do feel extremely lucky. You're fortunate because I mean, let's face it. Without it, what happens, right? I
Right.
mean, you're not going to survive. I mean, that's
They told me I had probably days left.
yeah. So and most everybody that receives an organ at one point or another, I mean, the end result is their life is going to end sooner than later, right? So
Yes,
this is truly a gift of life for them where they can continue to live because it's giving them more time they otherwise would have never had. And I think it's what a lot of people
absolutely.
don't really understand sometimes. I think, and eh, eh, people looking on the outside looking into the organ donation community because it really is. Um, they don't realize how sick people are that get these organ
Hmm.
transplants because it's not like they just need an organ. They're still okay, but they just had to get a new organ. No, that's not usually how it goes. These people are deathly ill, and living on borrowed time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I was. I can't, I guess, speak for everyone, but I definitely was.
I've talked to several people, and I think I would say the large majority of people are doing exactly
Yeah.
that because you can only do for kidneys you can only do dialysis for so long, or you can only do so
Right.
many things for so long. To your point, you can only tap for so long and take the medication for so long, and then it just isn't going to work anymore.
Yep.
So then the next step is ultimately it's death. And
Yep.
the whole point of doing organ donation is to in death you give life, right?
Absolutely.
That's what's
Yes.
happening, and kind of leading up to what you were talking about earlier on, you realized, quickly that somebody had to pass to for you to live. And and I think most donor families actually look at it a little bit differently. Like they were happy to be able to do that. They weren't sad. I mean, they're sad with the loss of the loved one. Don't get me wrong,
Absolutely.
but
Sure.
they feel incredibly blessed. At least I know I did when my son passed away and we donated his organs. We were incredibly blessed that we were able to help the people that we helped, because it gave that loss to me anyway with my son, and I know the rest of my family feels the same way. It gave that loss something more meaningful and more
Sure.
powerful. Yeah,
Sure.
we missed the heck out of him, but God, it was great that we could help these people. And two of them were kids, and
Hmm.
survive. So how did you work through that? Or I know you said you made the promise you're gonna honor that person every single day. So coming out of your surgery, you're healing up, you're going home, and all those things, getting out of the hospital. How did you kind of ration that out with to yourself and with your family?
Um, I guess that's a good question. I don't know. From day one, when this all started, when this whole journey started for me, and I knew that I was going to have this transplant, um, my outlook, my faith, a lot of things changed all the way around. And I think throughout all of us, we've always been strong faith, I guess, but you kind of, the whole world changes in my eyes. The whole world is, as far as just the giving of something is one thing, to give someone something, but the gift of a second chance at life is beyond measure. And you hope, and when a kid 16 years old goes in for their license and they're asking them, a kid doesn't even understand that. Unfortunately, there's not enough education, I don't believe, as organ donation. I was not an organ donor at 16. um, I later in life, obviously, I did, but I think that when you decide that you're going to be an organ donor, you don't realize the impact when a person like myself wakes up and all I could think about was that family. And when can I write? And when can I thank? Who can I thank? Where do I go next? What do I do with this? 2 months after I joined the Gift of Hope, I'm fortunate. I had a mutual friend that I met, Lisa Dodson, who works for the Gift of Hope, before my transplant. So she was with me throughout. And then I met Susie and different people. So I got involved with the Gift of Hope very early, and couldn't wait until I could do something. And then at 3 months post, um, I guess 6 months post, I'm sorry, 6 months post, I couldn't wait. And I wrote a letter, and sent it. I very short and sweet, but I had to tell them how grateful I was, that as soon as I was able to, I was going to, we all make promises, your New Year's resolutions and things, but I meant it. I'm going to do everything I can to take care of myself. I was never the picture of health, I guess is the good thing to say beforehand. And I am just anything and everything, just like doing this, anything I can talk about to educate people, to help someone through this. I wrote my letter to thank them, and 2 days before Christmas last year, I got an email. So my donor was a 51-year-old African American man, and he was a father, and I didn't know that. And I lost my dad at a young age. And so when I got that email from her, I was so torn. I happened to be sitting at lunch with my mom, my two sons, my stepdad when I got it. And I immediately started crying because I was so grateful. She knew how thankful I was, but I was grieving that they're first without their father at Christmas. I remember that. Um, so my boys got their mom, but a daughter lost her dad. And so you go through emotions so many different times through the course of this, just in your heart. But they make a choice the same as you and I. And I thank God every day. I just, and I He's in my prayers. He's in my heart. He's in everything I do. I say we because that's I am. I'm two now. I'm two people.
Yeah, yeah, you really are. And it's funny because I always say it's funny. It's not really funny, but donors want to be donors. That
Yeah,
to your point, you said it's a choice. Well, they want to be donors, and I guarantee if you could go back and ask them, you know, what do they think about this? And they would tell you they are ecstatic that they
yep,
were able to do that they were able to give somebody that.
yep,
They don't. People that sign up to be donors don't do it because they don't ever expect to help somebody. They're hoping and praying that when their time comes, they can. Right.
absolutely. I
I
agree.
When Nick passed away, we got our letter from the Gift of Hope about a month. I think it was probably 4 weeks or so afterwards, and
Wow.
telling us he had done who his organs had went to. His heart went to a 14-year-old boy, and his liver went to an 11-year-old boy. Then his
Oh my
right
God.
kidney and pancreas went to a 34-year-old man, and then his left kidney went to a 50-year-old woman. And then we got a letter from the mother of the boy that received his liver, and she had sent pictures because and she said exactly what you said was they were torn because they knew something or someone had to pass away for him to get his liver. And I mean, you could tell he was a very, very sick little guy.
Sure,
I say little guy, that was 10 and a half years ago. He's not a little guy now, but
sure.
you could just see, I mean, to your point, he's jaundiced, didn't have any hair. I mean, he'd been through treatments. I mean, it was just it, I was so happy when we got that from his mom and the pictures of him after the transplant and how good
Right.
he was growing his hair back, and he got his color back, and he's putting weight on, and he's able to participate and be that 11-year-old little boy.
Sure, sure.
Because there is no quality of life beforehand, especially when, and it said in the letter, I believe I think he was on the list for 4 or 5 days before he got,
Wow.
it was not,
Wow.
because he was, and if you're on that short of time, you're pretty critical.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was just so happy that that helped him. And
Yeah.
so my wife and I were talking a couple episodes ago, and we were talking about we're to the point now where we'd like to reach back out, and just
Sure.
send some letters again, because we've corresponded a couple times over the last 10 and a half years or so. And I got a call from the Gift of Hope. Then they had listened to the podcast, and I got an update as far as the recipients and where they're at now. And the 34-year-old man had passed, and then the
Mm,
50-year-old woman had just recently passed. But then the two, I'd say they're young men now, they're not boys,
sure.
still kicking it and doing real good. So that was encouraging. I was glad to hear that. But everybody got a little
Absolutely.
time. Everybody got a little bit more time, and that's really the whole point of it is you're getting some more time to live.
Absolutely. And you have to live. That's obviously right now with the craziness and it's so hard for just your I don't know average Joe to make a decision on what to do this week's Thanksgiving. Obviously, what do you do? Do you get together? Do you not get together? Life in general is so up in the air that you have to be thankful. Transplant, no transplant, human life is so precious that people need to just be so grateful. And anyone that, like myself, I think really just in your heart the feeling of gratitude and remorse and whatever, but the gratitude and the knowledge, I guess, of how precious life is just comes to a whole new meaning.
Yeah, it does. And I tell you, after losing Nick and going through what we went through, I mean, we do look at things a lot differently than we used to,
Mm-hmm.
a lot differently. Because I'll be honest with you, I wasn't an organ donor before Nicholas passed. I
Sure.
really spent a whole lot of time thinking about it,
Yep.
um, until that night, and we said, my wife had said, well, what about organ donation? Because at that time they had come and said, there was no survival for him, and he was for all intents and purposes, he was brain dead at that point. We just hadn't done the test in the morning to confirm it. But
Mm-hmm.
um, and I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, and his mom and stepdad kind of did. And they said, "Well, yeah." It was just like one of them. It wasn't even a hard kind. It was just like, "Well, yeah, duh," kind of one of those moments.
Sure.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, right? So we did. But after that, of course, I,
Sure.
I got involved with the Gift of Hope, and met Lisa and a lot of other people along. I mean,
Yeah,
so many people, so many incredible people. It's unbelievable.
absolutely.
You absolutely,
Yes,
it's so rewarding just by meeting the people you meet.
yes, yes.
And you know, I it's kept me. I think it's kept me focused and in a position to where I feel like I'm still, in a way, honoring him a little bit. You know,
Sure,
so I can.
sure.
Well, I tell everybody I do this for selfish reasons. I love talking about my son. You know,
Absolutely. And
he's
we love to hear about him.
yeah, he was a crazy kid. Is what he was. He was so fun. Well, he had ADHD, so he never slowed down.
Okay.
Eat like a million pounds of everything. He never stopped eating, but he never gained any weight. And he never stopped
Sure.
moving. He was just such a good, but he was lovable, and he was just funny, And of course, we had 5 kids, so the 3 boys and 2 girls, and so it was always chaotic. So
Sure.
it was a lot.
Sure.
So, so how has your life been different since you've had the transplant? I know you talked about how you do the advocacy work because you want to honor this person every day. Um, well, let me back up. Have you heard anything more from the family since the email? Have you stayed in contact or?
I have not. And I kind of, when I sent my letter, I had in my mind, if I heard back, fantastic. If I never heard back, that was okay. As long as they know my gratitude and my just immense gratefulness to them. That's all that mattered to me. And that was probably the biggest reason I was so grateful. I heard something back. I guess I told myself I didn't care, but when I heard it, man, did it make me feel good. Because I knew they got. And she said she was very happy that her father could help. And it seemed like because I received his liver, someone received his kidneys, and I believe his pancreas. There were 3 organs that were able to be given from my one donor. But that's all the correspondence I've gotten, and that's all I've heard. I have not. I haven't heard any more about him. My life now. So 6 months after my transplant, I did have rejection. So I was in the hospital up at Loyola for 3 days. And that was really scary because not even the thought of, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But I guess I, you think people think they get these transplants and either things go good or they go bad. And for the rest of your life, you battle this. And when I had that rejection after 6 months, I was so scared because I thought, oh my gosh, now here I am, and don't let me reject for so many reasons, thinking about his family, if they know, and oh, why is my body doing this? And there's just your mind again, you go back through so many emotions and so many things. And my numbers, I've had quite a few different things that my numbers have really fluctuated just the last 2 times. I get blood draws. I was doing it every 2 weeks, then I was up to a month, then I got up to 2 months, and then my numbers jumped. So now I'm back to every 2 weeks. But it's a constant battle of, you say your prayers because you hope. It's not uncommon for people to have more than one transplant or for something, God forbid, to happen. But my medicine changes and adjustments have all worked. And so now I'm doing really well. I work out very hard every day, eat right, and just wake up with a smile on my face. Just so thankful every time I open my eyes. I'm just, here's another day. Here's another day. What can we do today? I mean, we decorated for Christmas already. Let's everything that makes you happy. Guess what, people? Do it.
It's not even Thanksgiving yet.
I know, but I couldn't help it. I told my husband, let's just do it so we can enjoy it longer.
What do you say? Like, okay.
Exactly. Right. The same thing that, you would say. He's like, oh boy, here we go again. What
Yeah.
wild and
My
crazy
wife
things
started
you
that.
come up with
Yeah.
next.
My wife started that yesterday. I'm like, whatever, just
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, exactly. But it's
So
nice, you have to not take things for granted. Don't sweat the small stuff. I guess that's probably the most important thing. If I've learned anything, the little things that you used to take for granted or used to think were such big, oh my gosh, don't turn molehills into mountains. It's, it's don't just let things roll off your chest. Don't fight with your family. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring ever.
Yeah, that's for sure. There is no doubt. No, every day is not guaranteed.
No, it's not. And it's, I have we have a nephew now that's battling some things, and, you know, all we can do is pray. And I know some people, and it's hard sometimes, some people are like, well, but, what about this? What about that? Prayer does so many things for so many, and not everybody's like that. But for me, it helped me through some of my darkest days.
And so so obviously, you had strong faith beforehand,
Yes.
and you obviously maintain that. And I'm sure, you pray daily, and you try to live the best life that you can live.
Yes.
Do you feel like since you've had that your relationships have grown stronger with people?
I do. I do. Even my boys have said, "Mom and Dad, it's like you found this new love." You appreciate more, I think, is a great word to use. Just appreciation of things is much deeper and stronger. And things that you just don't assume, don't assume. You don't know. So it's appreciation and just that gratitude, I think, is much stronger.
And so, were you from 2012 on when you first found out? I guess so. Were you sick that whole time, or with some
No.
sort of? So you really just got sick starting there at that short amount of time. You were sick for what, about a year and a half or so?
Yep. For 2012, I was sick, but I wasn't nothing that stopped me from doing everything I wanted to do. And I mean, I always was a person that worked two jobs, and my kids were involved in every travel sport you could be, and we were on the road and going, and nothing kept me down. And so until 2018 really is when I started, just that I started really probably to get sick, to where it started to affect my everyday living.
And your husband, how how was it for him? I guess maybe, was it hard on him? Obviously, it was hard on him when you started getting sick.
Sure.
But I mean, how was it for him before? And then, I mean, do you see a change in him after the transplant? Do you like maybe relief or something like that? Do you see that?
Oh yeah, yeah. He really, it's um, he's told me numerous times, like he said, I used to just watch you sleep because I was so afraid that you wouldn't wake up. And I would he my husband has the heart of gold, and we've been together 28 years, and his family, we're very tight knit. And so he just I mean, obviously liver recipient. We drank, but when we found everything, obviously you had to completely quit drinking. He quit drinking the day I quit drinking. He's never looked back. He stands by me through everything and is amazing. And I could not be more fortunate to have had, I mean, just when I was getting released from the hospital, they said for the first 2 days, because I was only in the hospital 4 days,
Oh,
and then
wow.
they released me. Yes. And I said to them, they said, your husband's going to have to, for 2 days, I couldn't get a home health nurse. And I said, so I just survived a liver transplant, and this man, he's not going to be able to do this. I mean, this is not, you're going to let him kill me. I couldn't, I was scared to death. He had to get out. If they had to get me up to go to the restroom, he couldn't stand and watch me, because he couldn't stand to watch me be in pain. And so he just stepped up and did it. And it's just been amazing. And I couldn't have done it without him. And I know everybody says that, and everybody means it. And I mean it more than, I like to give him a lot of heck about stuff, but I could never have survived this without him.
Because I think it is important to have a good support structure in place, right?
Oh,
Because
yes.
these types of things are not anything that anybody can be successful alone. I think you have to have
No,
some sort of support structure, and it doesn't always have to be a lot of people. It could be one or two people. It could be, almost nobody. But you got to have a little bit of support structure there, because if you don't,
absolutely.
not to say that people aren't strong enough to do it by themselves, but it makes a big difference, I think, on their overall emotional and mental, along with
Yes,
healing. Because and that's the thing I don't think people understand. Also, is through organ donation, it's not just a physical healing that you have to do. There's the emotional and the mental healing that's got to come along with this too. because there's a
Yes.
lot of things that are getting thrown at you at one time, and to your point, the realization that somebody had to pass away to give you an organ, and then the thankfulness that you have your life back, a better life back, and your relationship
Yes.
and all. I mean, it's a lot going on for people.
It is. And that my doctor's appointments, anything I had they called themselves Team Christy. My brother, my one son, he lives in Wisconsin now, so he would drive to Chicago with my brother and I. My mom would go. My husband when he could. And then I have a group of friends that were part of my team, and they were there for me through. If somebody couldn't go, it was almost like tag team. If this person can't go, okay, tag, you're going with her. You got this. So I was just over fortunate for the support that I had and still have to this day. Just just texts from people checking on me just to make sure I'm okay. And I just that's one thing I did not lack was support.
Yeah, and so now you mentioned you were, and so from a medical standpoint, the support afterwards, obviously there's the checkups that you have to go to with the blood draws and check your levels and all that. Are you on medications as well, like
Yeah,
anti-rejection medications and stuff?
I am. Yeah, I'm on anti-rejection medications. I'm still actually on pretty high doses of anti-rejection because I had rejection so early. I'm on steroids, a few over-the-counter things, vitamins, vitamin D, multivitamin. I have to still take my ursodiol because when I had the rejection, they had to do a biopsy to check to see what was going on, and I not only had that, but they already found granulation of my PBC already in this new liver. So it never goes away. I will fight this forever, this PBC. And it attacks your bile ducts basically. And so they found granulation. So I'm on that ursodiol and I'll be on that for the rest of my life as well, just hoping to keep it at bay for as long as I live so we don't have to go through this again. But numerous medications, yes, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. My husband has an alarm on his phone and texts me on the days he's at work. Morning meds.
Morning meds, babe. Come on.
Yep. Morning meds, honey. Don't forget, and it's funny because I'll tell him sometimes you can turn that off now. It's been, it'll be 2 years in February, but I'll be darned if there's not days that 10 o'clock, hasn't happened a lot, but I'll look and I'll think, oh my gosh, I forgot to take my medicine. And maybe he was busy and didn't get me text or, we'll laugh about it. But it is funny because every day at 9 a.m., if he's here or not here, I get the message somehow, one way or another, time to take your meds.
That's amazing. So can you talk about a little bit your advocacy work that you've done for the Gift of Hope?
Sure. I've done, well, we were doing all kinds of events and different things. We have monthly meetings that we do where we all just discuss just what can we do next. We're trying to educate high schools to get into the driver's ed programs and different things. Before obviously COVID, obviously. We do, I worked a Riverman game last year. It was so much fun, just handing out pamphlets and talking to people about organ donation. Chiefs game we did last year, and they had, I got a jersey. The jerseys the Chiefs wore all had the organs on them. And so my birth date is January 8th. My organ birthday is February 8th. And so obviously 8 has now become our lucky number in this house. And so I got the number 8 jersey. They auctioned them off. And so we work different events, just as much awareness as we can bring. My trunk is full of anything they have, all kinds of different tchotchkes, I guess is what they call them, but giveaway things that I carry with me everywhere I go. And I talk to anybody that I can that wants to talk about it. I try just to explain to them that it's just something that has so much meaning that I don't think anybody can really understand. And you hope that no one has to go through it. But in the event that you do, you just hope, that you can just educate them on their choice that they can make and know that there is a lot to it. And here we go. So yeah, we do all kinds of fun. It's fun. It's fun. I've made a lot of great relationships.
Yeah, it's I'm not as active as I once was just with work and everything, but I still try to get out and at least do a few events a year,
Yeah.
and one of the things I've done I thought was really impactful that I enjoy doing is the morning, I think they call them toolboxes or something, where the hospital staff are changing shifts. And I've been invited. I've went and talked to those a few times.
Yep.
That was really a neat advocacy opportunity. I enjoyed that a lot. Done some things up in Galesburg Hospital with some like leadership team meetings they had there, and went and shared my story. And I mean, just the different hospitals you talk, the different people you meet. It's just, and it, it's such a large community. I don't think people even realize how large this community is.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's spread throughout the entire, I mean, spread throughout the whole United States, obviously, but just,
Right.
in our area of Illinois, I mean, we've got so many people and so many opportunities. I think the high schools are a big one.
Sure.
My daughter's in her senior year now. She,
Hmm.
we're going to have that opportunity to try to get some things done with the high schoolers, but with COVID, that kind of put everything on the back burner for everyone, I think.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a
Yeah.
lot of education to be spread that people don't, that you just little things that people don't realize. I mean, you're sitting at a restaurant and you're talking, and I've noticed people kind of start to listen. Just the more you can talk about it, I think that we can spread awareness just
Hmm.
for people to understand and share our stories from both perspectives. I think makes a huge difference. For people that and I've been lucky enough to do one of those huddle meetings in the morning with
That's what
before.
huddle, morning huddle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I also, during this COVID, a couple of the young ladies that work at the hospital, Ruth Keith and Erica Wilkerson, called me and asked me to do a video that they were doing something, they were presenting with my story. So they put that part of a kit that they can show during this time. I think numerous ones of us submitted videos of our stories, and I showed a picture of my family. Just, I think that has a huge impact too when people see that you're a person that someone saved, and this is my family that you helped as well. There's just so much, and then to talk to these nurses and doctors and these transplant teams. That's a whole nother thing to thank them because they are such a huge impact on all of this too. From the people that draw your blood to the people that take care of you at the ICU to the person that helped me climb stairs because I've got stairs at my house before I could come home. Just all of them, just every healthcare worker, obviously right now, as we all know, over and above what they do is so incredible. To thank them when we can speak at these meetings or at these different things, I think that's huge too.
Yeah. It goes a long way. Um,
Yeah.
that's, I always enjoy any opportunity to do speaking. I mean, that's just something I'm kind of like you. I'm good at it. I like to talk.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
that's why I do this podcast. It's just one of them things that I think it's a good platform. Now, I'm not, I'm whatever Joe Rogan that get 2 million visitors,
Right.
listens, and I average somewhere between 45 to 50 a week. So I'm okay with that. I'm hopefully it'll grow as time goes on. But it's a great way to share these stories because I think a lot of people don't really get to hear how it really works. So a lot of people say, "Well, I've heard of organ donation."
Sure.
But they don't really know about organ donation. You know,
No, no.
the education out there. I agree with you. There needs to be so much more education, especially started out in school. Let
Sure.
the kids get informed. Let them make a choice of what they want to do. And if they choose that it's not for them, fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
But
And you're exactly right.
but
There's
let's
no, yeah, and don't ever let anybody feel guilty for
no.
making a choice either way. I had a friend who his mom called me. He was 16 last year and got his license. And they asked, "Do you want to be an organ donor?" And they give you 5.2 seconds to answer that question. And he was looking at his mom, and she's like, "Yes." And she got home, and she said 2 hours later, he came to the top of the stairs, and he's like, "So can they just call me if they need something?" I mean, they just don't understand that it isn't. And God forbid, we all know when 16-year-old kids get their license. I mean, I didn't cry when my kids went to kindergarten or any of that. I cried when I handed them the keys to the car and they walked out the door, because then you're just like, "Oh Lord, please be with them,"
Oh,
and so, but I think they need to understand more, so that they can make a choice on their own and not feel guilty if they choose not to or if they choose to.
well, an informed decision is always a better option for people, right? Because
Absolutely.
to your point, he
Absolutely.
walks up and says, "So they just call me and take an organ when they need one." Well, of course not. They can't do
Right.
that.
Right.
There's a process to now. If you want to be a living donor, obviously there's a process to that too.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Certain organs you can't give up until you're done with them.
Right.
Your heart, for
Yeah.
example, your lungs, but
Yeah, we got a good chuckle.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of laugh at that too because, but then there's the other piece where it's not even just your kids that don't necessarily understand. Some adults are think, well, if I
Absolutely.
register to be an organ donor, then they're not going to take a good care of me in the hospital, and that is just so
Yeah.
incredibly
I
wrong.
know.
Doctors are paid to save your life.
They don't even know. They don't even know. You know what I mean? They don't get, oh, let's see if they're an organ donor. People don't understand that. And the other big one is, oh, I'm too old. Let them decide that.
Yeah.
And if you want to be an organ donor, sign up. If you can't, guess what? That's okay. But if you don't know until you sign that, check that box and sign that.
Or the other one that I've heard quite a few times too is, well, they'll look different in the casket. No,
Yeah,
no, they don't. No,
right.
they sure don't. They look exactly the same. You
Sure.
don't. I mean, let's face it. Anytime they're in the casket, they don't ever look the same anyway.
Right.
They don't.
Absolutely. I
I
agree.
mean, we know that, but they don't look different. They
No,
how they would have
no.
looked in the casket when the mortician's done with them. So it's not. There's just so much misinformation, and I think that's just the theme of the world today is misinformation
Absolutely.
instead of
I agree.
educating people the proper way to what does this really mean? What does it really do? Here's how the process really works,
Yep.
because it's a process. It's not I sign my name, they just come get my organs, or
Exactly.
if I get seriously injured, they just don't save me, so I'll die and they can take my organs. It doesn't work that way.
No, no.
And there's
And
tons of
the gift of
regulation.
Yes, and the Gift of Hope is such an unbelievable organization to, I mean, because we are very lucky that we have both recipients and donor families that want to share their story, that want to help people to understand that, because that's all it is. It's just an understanding of exactly what you're going to do or you're not going to do, and then you go from there. But some of these stereotypical things, it's too bad we can't, these personas, just bash them. But unfortunately, that's not that easy.
No, and it's an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people too, because
Sure.
we're talking about life and death. And when I have had conversations with people and they realize I've lost a child, you can see that switch in them.
Sure.
It's they become really uncomfortable all of a sudden. And I'm like, well, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm the one who lost a kid and I'm talking about it.
Right.
I mean, I think people in general have a lot of empathy for that, but at some point when they realize that, it becomes a very uncomfortable conversation for them. And it
Sure.
shouldn't. It shouldn't. It should be, yes, he's gone, but here's what we did with organ donation.
Sure.
And this is why, and
Yes.
here was the end result, and it helped these many people. And so those are the things that I think people we're trying to get them to understand. We're talking about it not because I want you to feel bad for me. I'm talking about because I want you to know what happened and what we did and what Nicholas did and the lives that were impacted and saved.
Absolutely. And be honored. He needs to be honored. I,
Mhm.
I mean, again, I thank you for doing this so that it does open up a door for people to hear our stories and to understand, and for our loved ones that are lost, our donor families, and our to be honored, because that's what needs to be done. I mean, it's a very special. It's just an unbelievable thing.
And yeah, and it really is, and it's a great platform for people to hear these stories. I'm going to continue to do these interviews with different recipients and donor families, and I interview all kinds of different people too. I've had, it's We All Grieve for reasons what I named it. We talk about the whole people's tragedies, but also the triumphs afterwards, because in every interview I've had, that I've done, and I'm going on near number 38, is there's always triumph afterwards. I always talk about a bright spot or how it's changed and what things are better for them and all that. It's not always just this happened and my life is terrible afterwards.
Right.
It can be challenging, no doubt. There's,
Absolutely.
but they always talk about some of the good that's come out of things. So, you know, a lot of people really just like to have an opportunity and a platform to be able to share that story.
Yeah. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes you got to look a little harder, it gets a little dim, but it's always there. If people, some days you look a little harder, like everything. Some days you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, but suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, if you make it till tomorrow, guess what? You got a fresh start tomorrow morning.
That's exactly right. Do it again.
Every day is a fresh start if you really want it to be. I mean, that's really how you have to do it.
Absolutely.
So, well, listen,
Yeah.
this has been a really great interview. I thank you for taking the time. Do you have
No, thank you.
any parting words for the listeners?
Just thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate anyone that listens to any of us about what they can do. And, we love to share our stories, and whether we know our donor's name or don't, like I don't know him, but thank God for him. And just, please be an organ, eye, and tissue donor.
All right, there you go. All right, folks. Well, we're going to call this one a day. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen. We're out on any podcast platform out there. We're on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We're on Amazon, Google, all the big Stitcher. So please take a look. We All Grieve. I got a YouTube channel. It's called We All Grieve. And if you want to send an email and got any questions or interested in doing an interview, you can email me at weallgrieve19@gmail.com. And again, I appreciate you guys taking a listen. Until next time, peace.